Good evening, everyone. The United National Congress pre-budget consultation is rolling into Barataria this Thursday, 1st September at 6 p.m., hosted by the San Juan Laventille Regional Corporation, Port of Spain City Corporation, and Diego Martin Regional Corporation. Join us live from the Barataria Community Center as we hear from various stakeholders and members of the public. Let's talk budget. See you there. Good evening, everyone. The United National Congress pre-budget consultation is rolling into Barataria this Thursday, 1st September at 6 p.m., hosted by the San Juan Laventille Regional Corporation, Port of Spain City Corporation, and Diego Martin Regional Corporation. Join us live from the Barataria Community Center as we hear from various stakeholders and members of the public. Let's talk budget. See you there.
Forged from the love of liberty in the fires of hope and prayer, with boundless faith in our destiny, we solemnly declare, side by side we stand, islands of the blue Caribbean Sea. This our native land, we pledge our lives to thee. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation.
Almighty God, most beneficial and merciful, Creator of the universe and embodiment of divine wisdom and light, we come before you with thanksgiving and praise. May your will be done in our nation as it is in the heavens. Please bless our political leader, party officials, activists, and all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Give us the grace to always see good, be good, and do good, and the courage to serve the people. Protect us as we stand against injustice and iniquity, and inspire our endeavors to find the right solutions to the problems that are affecting our fellow citizens. Grant that we may always work together with humility and respect for the greater happiness of all and the honor and glory of our country. Live from UNC Battleground, this is the Virtual Report, streaming on all platforms.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our UNC Virtual Report. I am Alderman Keon Sarbsing, and I am proud to be a UNC member of Council in the Sanigani Regional Corporation. This evening, I am happy to be here with my UNC brother, the Councillor for Sanigani Northwest, Mr. Nasser Hussain, to take you through tonight's program. Tonight we are live on Jagriti TV, Synergy TV, Freedom 106.5 FM, Street 91.9 FM, More 104.7 FM, and all UNC social media platforms. Our first speaker is a fearless champion of the people. He is a well-known businessman and a long UNC warrior. He continued to fight the oppression of this government both inside and outside of the parliament. In the Senate, he is a powerful advocate for our citizens, and he continued to fearlessly stand up for the rights. Please welcome to the virtual platform, Senator Damian Lyda.
To our honorable political leader, Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar, our General Secretary here with us tonight, colleagues and supporters in your numbers here tonight, and for all of those thousands listening in on the airwaves and on the radio here tonight, I say to you, good night at not such a good time. You see, brothers and sisters, our country is in despair. Our economy is in shambles. And what the floods did not destroy today, the Rowley-led PNM government is destroying the rest of it for the rest of the citizens. Our energy sector inclusive. So I am here tonight to discuss in general the lack of maintenance on many of our energy assets, and in particular the collapse of the Caridoc facility in Chagaramas, and some frightening information coming out of the National Energy Operation as it pertains to the Savanetta Pier facility in Point Lisas. This government will try in a desperation to make you believe all is well in the energy sector. But I put you on notice that it was the Ukraine war and not Rowley and Young that benefited Trinidad and Tobago. Last week I heard Stuart Young boasting about the billions that our energy sector has earned because of high commodity prices. So I want Trinidad and Tobago to understand clearly that not a single dollar of those billions earned was as a result of this incompetent administration. Rather, it was due to our war in Ukraine. What is saving our economy via the energy sector is Putin and not the PNM. You must know that. Stuart Young and Rowley want us to forget that a mere 12 months ago, our national energy sector fell into the biggest catastrophe we've seen. When just 12 months ago we saw the collapse of the Train 1, where more than $240 million was wasted of your taxpayers' money when we had no gas to facilitate that. And 1 year before, we can remember that NGC made a loss for the first time in their history. In 2020, this country faced the most amount of plant closures in Point Lisas. We must never forget, brothers and sisters, that national gas production is at a 19-year low. Oil production is at a 70-year low. Atlantic Train 1 is dead. 2 methanol plants, Titan and M1, closed. ArcelorMittal closed, pack up their bag and gone. Yara ammonia plant closed. Offshore drilling collapsed. Refinery closed at a time when there's a global energy crisis. But you are saying nothing because you was closing your fridge door. That is what happened. You didn't say nothing then, but you're saying it now. And we saw them yesterday when they were walking around the Prime Minister's residence in protest because we've woken up and the fridge door no longer closing. The question must be asked, but I tell you this here, brothers and sisters, yet Rowley and Young traveling the world, going to meetings, mamagain the population when they have no gas to supply these particular customers. Then Imbert come out in a video last week to mamagai the population about the increase of billions of dollars coming from fertilizers. Furthermore, in recent statements, he disclosed that this country was bringing in more than $1 billion a month in this financial year extra. Well, the question has to be asked. We have to ask this question. what is the government doing with this so-called windfall that they're boasting about? Because in the 7 years that this government has been in office, they have failed to diversify our economy outside of the energy sector, with manufacturing, export, tourism, and agriculture all in decline, with foreign direct investment exiting our shores by the tune of $10 billion, with unemployment soaring and increasing over 100,000 persons on the breadline. Where's the additional billions going? Tell us, because the man on the ground is not seeing it. There is mass suffering. Food prices are soaring. You raise fuel prices not once, not two, twice, not three times, but 4 times, suffering the people. And tax after tax by this wicked Dwen. And he coming to you with the property tax next. Keep that in mind. With the list of social programs that Kamla Persad-Bissessar implemented, either removed or significantly reduced, we see people suffering as a result. So is this windfall, I ask, where is it going? Because not only the poor persons in this country suffering, but 99% of this population seeing hard times today, while the friends, family, and financiers of this government laugh into the bank. So what I could tell you is this. I want to know whether or not this windfall is being used to cover the debt that this government has put us in. Mbut must answer that. Is this windfall being used to pay the contractor friends and financiers of the government? Let us know. But what I could tell you this money is not being spent on is on the maintenance of the facilities owned by you, the taxpayers, the energy facilities in this country that the taxpayers in this country own. It's not being spent there. Imagine last week, Friday, I, along with the rest of the nation, was in shock when it was reported that just a couple of years after the government took control of the Caradoc, I have the article here. Look, it's Asha Javid who wrote the article, yes? Okay. Right there, after 2 years, this Caradoc dry dock facility has now sunk to the bottom of the ocean in Chaguaramas, right down there in Keith Rowley constituency. Yes, see, shame. Shame, boy, shame. The Express article on 2020 said that the state took the asset from the CL Financial Group to offset some $119 million owed to the state. Let me remind you, that is your $119 million that they used to take over this Caradoc facility. But just 2 years later, the government, through mismanagement and the lack of maintenance of this facility, the facility is now at the bottom of the water. Maybe to become scrap iron, but we know they closed down the scrap iron industry, so they're going to sit down there and become a fish pond. But let me tell you this, after decades of operation, this government in 2 years collapsed and sank this yard. It is our understanding that it was so corroded and in such despair that it may not be able to be salvaged here today. And what we are hearing since this government took control of the dockyard is that they have neglected with the maintenance needed to prevent this disaster. Typical PNM style. So it carried up down our big ship repair facilities in Chaguaramas has now been killed, slaughtered. So it begs the question, was this willful negligence? I wonder. Did they plan this sinking of Caradoc to help the business interests of another PNM friend? I'm only asking. And we're keeping our eye on that facility. That is what your loyal opposition will do. They are reported, brothers and sisters, that close between 350 and 450 persons employed in different operations connected to this Caradoc facility who are now about to go on the breadline. They are at risk of going on the breadline. People such as machine shop workers, ship chandlers, compressor stations, divers, and companies in the areas providing support services. The jack-up rigs and the boats that would come from Guyana, come from Curacao, come from Suriname, who would come here to do maintenance. All these boats will no longer come here, taking away the scarce foreign exchange that this country so desperately needs right now because of mismanagement of this government. And while all this is going on, the taxpayers in this country have now lost $119 million due to this faux pas. The dockyard was the only facility in the country that dealt with the repair and maintenance of big ship tankers, inclusive of the ferries that ply the trade on the island sea bridge between Trinidad and Tobago. So, Tobago, the government must answer the question, will the service of the Boko Reef and the APT James be taken foreign now? Where will you service those boats? Is Tobago in for more transportation pressure? Should these ships require maintenance in a foreign land? I ask any question. And is some financier going to build a facility? Let us know. Even if this dockyard is picked up from the seabed today, it will be condemned to scrap iron. Which begs the question, no other big facility in this country, yet this government came for 7 years in 2 elections and countless budgets to come and boast about an agreement with a Chinese company to build a dockyard facility in Labre. What has happened with that? Well, I did my research, and it is only in December of this year we saw in Imbert's face, here it is, in the Newsday, where Imbert announced that this dry dock facility will be going ahead. But up to this day, we've seen no brick, no mortar laid. So I ask, is this another failed promise from Colin Imbert? He promised 3,000 jobs from this facility. Is this another failed promise? And yet another foreign exchange earner gone. But brothers and sisters, when I was reading the article, something interesting happened. I was researching it, and in the article on the 16th of December 2021, I have the article here where Colin Imbert, in piloting a finance bill in the Senate, he stated that this dry dock facility will be built by the China, forgive me for the pronunciation, Gezumba Group. And 3 years after signing ceremony of an MOU between the government of China Harbour Engineering Limited, a different company, we are here to see an article. 3 years after signing that, we are now hearing that it's a different Chinese company. In December, the article goes on to state that the NIDCO chairman, when asked which company would be officially contracted, the NIDCO chairman confirmed that they are treating with the Gezumba now. I have nothing against any Chinese company that is working in partnership with our government. But when I saw the name of the new prospective partner, I asked myself a question. Is this the same China Gezumba Group reported in the Newsday in Friday, the 6th of September 2019? And I have the article here where the HEC had to end a contract with this group, cancelling a contract at the value of $72 million US. Is this the same Chinese group where the cabinet cancelled the contract and reported it in the Newsday? And I quote, HEC has been instructed to go back out to tender because there were some parts of that contract which didn't meet the cabinet's acceptance and approval structurally and legalistically. So that contract has been stopped. We are not going forward with it in the way in which it was produced. He said it has been cancelled. So the Prime Minister must let us know. Is that the same group? And are we going to see the same dry dock facility in Labre cancelled like those 5,000 houses that the PNM promised and never materialized? Are we seeing that? And then, brothers and sisters, as time moves along, the failure of this government with maintenance doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there. It has come to my attention, and the Minister of Energy must clear the air. Workers down at the National Energy Corporation run pier in Point Lisas have complained about the derelict state of the Savanetta pier. Like the Caradoc facility, lack of maintenance over the past few years under this government poses a potential risk to the methanol and ammonia industry, as well as all the lives of the citizens who work there. I have received a report with a scope of works. It's in my hand. Look at it. National Energy, from the company Scope of Works. I have received it. And just for the information of the population, let me tell you what this report states about. And I will read it, I will quote it. The petrochemical facilities serve the heavy gas-based industries at Point Lisas Industrial Estate and are classified as hazardous cargo terminals to hazardous handled, such as ammonia, methanol, iron ore, etc. That was the introduction of the report. And then I read further in the report that in 2018, the company put forward an inspection on this berthing facility where the boats have to dock up, tie up, and take the methanol and the dangerous fuel into their tankers. This is the facility they must hold on to, and the integrity of this facility is apparently compromised according to this report. So in 2018, they did a study to identify, map, and determine the extent of deterioration, corrosion, physical damage to the substructure, and piling Savanetta Pier 2 by means of visual inspection, measurements, non-destructive testing, and cathodic protection ratings. And then in 2019, they came again and did another more thorough inspection. And when the results came out, the presence of deep pits and cavities were revealed at random locations during the inspection to the berthing and mooring dolphins at Savanetta Pier 2 South. Additionally, no cathodic protection system was present. So brothers and sisters, this happened in 2018. 2019, while the risk of our citizens working on that dock, and then it's come to our understanding that it's only in late 2021 that they actually went forward with the contract to start repairing that pier. That is what we understand. So, I ask the question, the Minister of Energy and the Chairman of the National Energy Company must tell us what is the current state of that Pier 2 facility, and by extension, what is the condition of all 4 other piers there. Because if you did no work between 2019 and the award of the contract in late 2021, God alone knows how much more this berthing facility has been compromised. Let us know, because should the pier be compromised and should the pipeline be compromised going into the ship because of lack of maintenance, is there a risk of a leak and a threat to the lives of workers and citizens? Just as the threat and the eventual loss of life to the 4 divers. And I'm asking the government, what's going on? What's the latest with that commission of inquiry with the 4 divers? Total silence from the government, while the families still are grieving and crying out for justice. So that is the state of the neglect and poor maintenance that this government... I have pictures to prove the state of this port facility. Brothers and sisters, if I had more time to talk about the scrap iron, I would say so. But brothers and sisters, the general failure of this government in terms of maintenance is not only seen in the energy sector, as I just outlined with the dry dock facility that collapsed in Rowley constituency, and the questions we have for them down at Savanetta Pier. We see the fall of infrastructure in the length and breadth of this country. And tonight, brothers and sisters, the two chairpersons tonight, and I see my brothers, more brothers, the aldermen and representatives of the Sangre Grande Regional Corporation here with us tonight. And that reminds me, brothers and sisters, of the geographical discrimination that this government has perpetrated on that corporation because it was a UNC corporation. You have refused to give them their monies. You have refused to give them the resources to maintain the structures, the sporting grounds, all the facilities in Sangre Grande. And it was Urvashi Rupnarayan that showed the country, the state of these facilities that are overgrown, where our children can no longer play in those grounds, where they can no longer sit in the stands because they're falling apart. And I call on the Cutlass man to stop playing games because you have a local government election coming. I call on you to send the subventions, send the money to the Sangre Grande Regional Corporation and let them do their work. Stop trying to do that. So in the end, my brothers and sisters, with the collapse of the energy sector, businesses falling, and the non-energy economy in shambles, with thousands on the breadline, desperately trying to survive, we see a crime situation that is now exacerbated and running completely out of control. When we see murders in this country that are catapulting to 600 murders, and with serious crime in double-digit growth. And as I'm closing, do you know what the government solution to this is? I have the solution. They sent me the crime plan in my mailbox. I got it. First is they are going to send the police back to the original uniforms, and then they come in to get them a khaki short pants and a tall socks. That is the solution the government has. Take us back to 1950. take us back. But on a serious note, brothers and sisters, on a serious note, they want to take away the baklava and the face masks from those task force officers who on a daily basis risk their lives to go to apprehend serious criminals who have heavy artillery. And you remove the face masks and what? You expose those task force officers, those same officers who have to return to their homes, many of their homes close to those same persons that they've apprehended. And when they go home unarmed because you're investigating legal firearms instead of illegal firearms, their lives are at risk. So brothers and sisters, great grand plan. The country's in a total mess, an absolute mess. And this is why we join the many voices in this country. The workers, the unions, the scrap iron metal dealers, calling for this government to step down. And the United National Congress is calling on this government to bring a general elections immediately and let this country fall under good governance under the leadership of Ms. Kamala Persad-Bissessar, where once again our citizens will raise their arms with the rising sun. I thank you.
Welcome to the revolution.
People crying out for justice. Some of them crying out for freedom.
Want freedom.
Everybody crying out for democracy. Now it's time to take a stand. Yeah.
Come on! Cause this is the revolution.
Good evening, everyone. The United National Congress pre-budget consultation is rolling into Barataria this Thursday, 1st September at 6 p.m., hosted by the San Juan Laventil Regional Corporation, Port of Spain City Corporation, and Diego Martin Regional Corporation. Join us live from the Barataria Community Center as we hear from various stakeholders and members of the public. Let's talk budget. See you there.
Mr. Rohan Sinanan to get something and pave. You hear me? Get something and pave. All right. I know our next speaker is a young professional who is passionate about public service and the development of Trinidad and Tobago. She holds a law degree from the University of London and is a graduate of St. Joseph's Convent, San Fernando. In the past few years, she has demonstrated that she has what it takes to follow through with our leaders' vision and passion for educational development. Please put your hands together for the Member of Parliament for Tabakit, Miss Anita Hayes.
Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Everybody sing.
As we move in this people's revolution, my brothers and sisters, let's all walk together as one. This revolution is about restoring our democracy. And this revolution.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A special good evening to my colleagues here tonight, fellow speakers, including our esteemed political leader, Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar. A special good evening to you, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, who tune in to the opposition's virtual platform because you care about the issues facing Trinidad and Tobago. Now, I entered politics at a fairly young age, and I chose to join the United National Congress because I recognize the party's plan for education, its reputation as innovators in the education sector. The party has been the party that has inspired hope, that has created opportunities, equitable access to opportunities for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And I'm sure many of you will agree that the United National Congress has, from its inception, put the education of our citizens at the helm, at the very front. And so, because we believe and we know for a fact that the investment in the people of a country is what will create national development, we continue to advocate for and bring forward the issues facing the education sector. Equitable access to opportunities makes a real difference in our country. If you create equitable access to education, you are going to reduce the gap between income and wealth in this country. And so you are not going to have the conversations about who is a 1%, 2%, because we would all be able to participate in the benefits of national development. Disturbingly, however, we have seen under this PNM administration regressive education policies. The hope that our citizens once felt in the education sector has disappeared. Our education sector is collapsing, and with it, the future of this country is going away bit by bit. And so our students no longer feel energized and motivated to participate. They cannot do their best to ensure that they access scholarships and grants because the PNM has been cutting scholarships and grants. Year after year, we are seeing the technological divide grow increasingly wide. And we've said it over and over and over. Had the laptop program not been scrapped, many of the challenges brought on by the pandemic we would not be facing here today. And so particularly when we look at things like tertiary education, secondary education, you are seeing relics of the past. We are on the cusp of celebrating 60 years of independence. And right now, more than ever, you are seeing the impact of regressive policies. You cannot, the education sector looks as if it was the early 1990s. I mean, again, tertiary education, when you take a look at it, those who have money now, you can access tertiary education. If you don't have it, you simply cannot access it. Right now, I am getting calls in my office about students who are unable to access GATE programming, who completed the means test, everything else. And when they are getting the feedback from GATE, they are told that they are shut out of the program. You know what that means? If your family is unemployed, your parents are not working, rising cost of living, how are you going to spare the money to access tertiary education? And it gets worse than that. It's scarier than that now. I remember having a conversation with my grandmother, talking about education years ago, where parents had to decide which one of their children will succeed. So who has the highest chance of success? That is the child that they will spend the money to send to school, because all couldn't go. Everybody couldn't go to school. That is where we're at now. Right now, parents are making a decision, looking at all their children and figuring which one can we put the money behind so that we could send one to school and hopefully they make it and help everybody else out. This, in 2022, in a country that has spent billions of dollars on education, in a country that has oil riches, in a country where they can buy paintings for millions of dollars and talk about golf courses for millions of dollars, you are telling me we are in a space where parents have to choose which child goes to school. And so today, as I was preparing, yesterday we held an opposition press conference, and I said the Minister of Education seemed to think July, August vacation applied to her. And today, she showed up for a press conference. And honestly speaking, 45 minutes and it gave us nothing, absolutely nothing. We got more questions than answers at the end of the 45 minutes. And let's just start with the vacation revision program. Let's be honest about what happened here. The SEA results came out, panic in the camp. The entire Ministry of Education panicked because they knew the results showed clear evidence of their incompetence, clear, distinct evidence of their incompetence. And so what they did, quickly, come up with something, rustle up a plan, let us make an announcement. So they said, right, we're going out there, we're going to tell them 4 weeks vacation revision program, and by the end of it, they're ready for secondary school. So in the first point, we were told they will spend $10 million. All 9,000 students who scored below 50% in the SEA exam will benefit from this. And in that intensive 4-week program, you'll be ready for secondary school. So 9,000 students, 600 teachers, 38 schools, everything good. Everybody's supposed to be comfortable now. We're doing okay. Today, after calls yesterday, for us to find out how much was really spent, how many students benefited, what really happened in that 4 weeks. What were we told today? 1,900 of the 9,000 students turned up. That's how many persons participated in the exam. 171 teachers provided the instruction. No word at the final cost, none. But again, they were sitting there praising themselves. In true comedic form, they said, listen, we had a turn up campaign. Turn up, don't give up. Show up, come participate in the program. With 21% of the persons participating, you could consider that a success. Nobody turned up, so what are you applauding yourself for? And I listened to the minister trying to explain how this 4-week vacation revision program is going to turn into a 5-year program. Mind you, they still cannot tell us if indeed it succeeded, because the students who participated, who scored below 50% in the SEA exam this year, in 2 years will have to take another exam to see if they are qualified enough to be part of the secondary school system. Now, think about that. If it's making sense to you, I mean, it certainly is not making sense to me, and I felt sorry for the members of the press corps because it could not make sense to them either. But they were telling us that they have a new exam, the lower secondary proficiency exam. You know what that is? It's the former primary school leaving exam. Listen, how can you come here, and I heard the minister in the Ministry of Education come in and talk about essay competition to celebrate 60 years and painting and whatever they're going to do. But you could sit there and realize that you have taken our education sector so far back. We are back at primary school leaving exam. That is where we are now. Absolute shame. And so they are trying to convince this population that this is a learning loss as a result of the pandemic. Very bold-faced lie, yeah? Very bold-faced lie. Imagine I sat there today and listened to this press conference as they rolled out what the plans are to help our students succeed. And it clicked in my brain. All of those things sound very familiar. Very, very familiar. Where have I heard it before? All right, go on my laptop. Very quickly, the People's Partnership Achievement Document, a document created in 2014 during the period 2014-2015. Easy to find, right? Today at the press conference, they all sat there for 45 minutes and tried to repackage programs that they cancelled between 15 and 17, that they cancelled between 15, and repackage it as a new program to save our students. Imagine that. Imagine that. And not, they sat there today and repackaged UNC policies and said, listen, look, we're going to do something for you. Basics now, I'm talking about literacy and numeracy. Under the People's Partnership Administration, 2014 was the highest year of academic success. Highest year. All 3 exams, SEA, CAPE, CSEC, best results. Why? Why did that happen? It didn't happen just so, right? Notice that we don't even give you what happened 2010, 2011, 11, 12. No. We have allowed the policies to be implemented effectively, show that they work, and then we show you the results. And that is the crux of a UNC government. That is the crux of a UNC government. And so we had universal homework and after-school centers. We also had a Dial a Teacher program, which was a collaborative effort between TSTT and the Ministry of Education, which allowed toll-free help in math and English for SEA students, math, English, and integrated science for the CSEC students at no cost to the parents. What did that do? That meant that when you were going home and you're doing your homework, if your parent cannot help you, we found a way to get free help to you to continue your learning at home. This boils down to the fact that the UNC understood then, as it understands now, that if our policies are not targeted to create solutions, they are useless. And so now you have the PNM administration saying they are going to incorporate the vacation program during the school system, and then they are going to wait for you to fail. Think about that. They are going to wait for you to fail, and then say, all right, we'll see how we could help you. That is where we're at now. We, in the People's Partnership Administration, had employed 280 remedial teachers and close to 300 substitute teachers throughout the primary and secondary school system in different subject areas. What did this do? This meant that you captured students who needed the help within the school system before they failed. You got help to enable you not to fail. Now, fail, and we will see how we could help you. Imagine that. There was a coaching program. Today they're talking about motivation in schools, who they're going to bring in motivational speakers and influencers. God help us. But there was a coaching program in schools then that allowed primary school students and secondary school students access to persons who worked on your self-image, vocational skills, things that you needed to develop into a total person. They scrapped it. And now, coming to tell us today, motivational speakers in schools. Listen, the improvement in academic success under the partnership was not by chance. It was because we understood how to implement targeted solutions. The holistic, today, listen, today again, they came back to talk about the CVQs. So that's vocational studies, vocational qualifications. I remember, I mean, the internet is available to all. Anthony Garcia, when he was Minister of Education, stood up and told us that they were cancelling all of these things. They simply didn't have the money for it. Now, you're telling us you're bringing it back. You can't, imagine if they had kept, if they were not so wicked and incompetent, that they had kept those programs where we would be today. Imagine that. Imagine that. Out of spite, and it could only be spite, that you cancel these programs in those years between 15 and 17, and now you're bringing it back in 2022. I mean, shamelessness. And who suffered? Who suffered? Our children suffered. Our future suffered because of the PNM's regressive policies. And when we discuss our future, when you listen to the UNC, we talk about equitable, inclusive access. Everybody has a space, everybody has a chance. When you listen to the PNM, if you fail, maybe we will try to help you. Today, they said they are trying to get our students to get to the most basic level of qualification. That's what you're telling the people of Trinidad and Tobago. That we are trying to get you to the lowest possible pass mark and you're good to go. What does that mean? What does that mean for our future? And so as I conclude here today, ladies and gentlemen, we do not have a resource problem in this country. Money is not the problem right now. The problem is the PNM, and therefore they cannot be the solution. Imagine in less than 24 hours, the Minister of Education has proven my point, that you could sit down there. Again, absence of statistics. I mean, the minister spoke today about reintroducing the arts into the system so that you're getting things like dance and creative arts, etc. Mind you, when we had the school-based assessment, which included music, which included physical education, which included spaces to ensure that if you are not the most academically gifted, you were not left out of the system, they scrapped that. They scrapped it and they're bringing it back now today. And she's applauding herself. Either they don't read or they don't know, but certainly, the shamelessness today cannot go unaddressed. And so, days away from the 60th anniversary of our independence, PNM like to talk about Dr. Eric Williams, and that he said the future of our the future of our nation is in our children's book bags. But Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, as Prime Minister, took it further, rapidly advancing in the technological world. She committed children that regardless of your economic circumstance, you would have a laptop in your book bag. You would have a fighting chance. And what does this government say about our education, our future? Nothing. Mama guy, old talk, rhetoric. And so we as a nation, we must stand up. Together, we must bring the ultimate change, a change in leadership, because what we are facing today is a crisis in leadership at the very top. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the United National Congress remains here fighting for you, but now you must fight with us for our country, and I thank you very much.
Welcome to the revolution.
People crying out for justice. Some of them crying out for freedom.
One freedom.
Everybody crying out for democracy. Now it's time to take a stand, yeah.
Come on! 'Cause this is
My UNC family, some months ago, our political leader they called on the Prime Minister to do a back-to-school grant. This Prime Minister seat unfit and seat important to listen or take some advice from our political leader to do a back-to-school grant, drive. But it's important for this Prime Minister and this government to spend $7.5 million on independence celebration. That was more important, not our school children. Our next speaker is a person that everyone is familiar with in the United National Congress and wide nation as a chairman and a foundation member of the United National Congress. A man of the people, he continued to distinguish himself as a member of parliament for Obush West. He's an economist and an attorney at law. It is my privilege to welcome to the United National Virtual Platform MP Dave Tanku. Thank you.
Revolution, the people's revolution. This is the revolution. I wanna hear everybody sing. Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Everybody sing. As we move in this people's revolution, my brothers and sisters, let's all walk together as one. This revolution is about restoring our democracy, and this revolution is.
Political leader of the United National Congress, the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar, fellow members of Parliament, senators, members of the National Executive, online viewers, including our international viewers in England, Canada, and the United States, and members of the audience gathered here tonight at the UNC headquarters. Good night. 60 years ago, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago were fighting for their independence. Today, our citizens and the descendants of those very patriots are fighting for survival. A survey conducted by international agencies revealed that today there are thousands of citizens who are going without food on a daily basis. Every one of you here listening tonight knows of some young person, if not you yourself, who has been desperately looking for a job. Without success, you cannot find one. Every one of you knows someone who has lost a job under this regime. Every one of you listening here tonight knows someone who has been robbed, brutalized, assaulted, raped, or murdered in the last few years by this current crime wave enveloping and developing and burying this country. Every one of you knows someone with a micro, small, and medium-sized business that has closed under this regime. Every one of you will agree that today we have the worst infrastructure in the history of this country. Places that never flooded before are today flooding at the very hint of rainfall. That is the state of our country, ladies and gentlemen, after 7 years of PNM. But it cost you citizens, it cost taxpayers $393 billion for this government to bring this country down to the state that it is today. This government claims to have spent $280,000 per person over the last 7 years. And instead of things getting better, they have gotten infinitely worse. And last Tuesday, when the Honorable Prime Minister spoke at a PNM meeting, we again saw exactly why this country is in the state that it is in. Now, like many of you, I cannot bear to listen to braying on a continuous and rational basis, on a sustained basis. So I was able to get a copy of the whole speech, but reading it was just as painful. The speech by the Prime Minister was oxymoronic, and I want to make it very clear. I did not just call the Prime Minister a moron. The word I used was oxymoronic. You see, his comments were a contradiction of an admission of failure at multiple levels of governance, with a sprinkling of blame Kamala thrown in for good measure, and then multiple claims that somehow these failures were able to result in the country somehow being successful. Dr. Rowley started off with a confession, effectively summarizing his own contribution when he said, and I quote, "This is the era of the big lie. We will not escape that." Those were the words of Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. You see, just a few minutes before that, Minister Hines had looked the population in his face and said that PNM MPs don't lie. You hear lie? That is lie. He said that the Prime Minister would fire them if they lied. You hear lie? That is lie. This is the same Prime Minister, by the way, who expresses absolute confidence in a man as Attorney General who had lied internationally, in court, and on paper. But I digress. In the 1 hour and 27 minutes that the Honorable Prime Minister spoke, I must have been able to identify over 15 lies. The Prime Minister, it seems, has now discovered that after 7 years and billions of dollars in expenditure, the level of crime in this country was, and I quote for him, finally unacceptable. Well, that must be the understatement of a lifetime. Amazingly, though, the Prime Minister's problem wasn't that people were being buried under crime. It wasn't that people were being robbed and assaulted. The Prime Minister's issue was that he was being told to remove his Minister of National Security. The Prime Minister actually asked why crime levels didn't surge and didn't change under the UNC when we had 6 Ministers of National Security, according to him. That's a lie, but we'll deal with that another time. The fact is, however, that the crime situation did change. Last week, the Honorable Leader of the Opposition presented a table showing the statistics. The fact is that crime did drop under the UNC. It is a statistical fact. Just like it is a statistical fact that whenever the PNM is in government, the number of murders, the crime rate, goes up as it is going up now. Under KPB, the murder rate dropped from 550 to a low of 354. Well, today under the PNM, the trend is in the opposite direction. We are already past 386, and we still have 3 more months to go. That is PNM performance. You think UNC could do that? That is PNM performance. That is a shame that passes for governance and shame that passes for crime solution in this country. You see, the reason why crime dropped under Kamla Persad-Bissessa's government was because we were willing to try new ideas and new people to deal with the issues facing our nation, not like the PNM. We didn't throw up our hands in the air and say, well, crime is an international problem, and therefore it is okay that we have crime as bad as we have it in Trinidad and Tobago. We took aggressive, decisive action against crime and criminals, and the results showed it, something the PNM refuses to do. So you see, Dr. Rowley, lying doesn't change the facts. Crime went down under the UNC and is going sky high under the PNM because of your incompetence and the incompetence of your Minister of National Security. Lying doesn't change the facts. But you see, when you have a man paid by taxpayers as Minister of National Security who openly says that his job is not to make people feel safe and secure, who is literally and figuratively asleep on the job all the time, then that man should be fired for comprehensive incompetence. But you see, under the PNM, the willingness and ability to lie is the criteria for promotion. The biggest lie told in this country was Emailgate. And the man who told that lie, well, you know where he has reached. And up to today, he has not stopped. Again, another one. According to the Prime Minister's speech on Tuesday, the opposition took the government to court 51 times between March 2020 and June 2021. You hear lie? That is lie. I am honored to be a member of the opposition. I was General Secretary then and now Chairman of our great party. And I challenge the Prime Minister tonight to provide evidence of one instance when the opposition UNC took the government to court on these matters. Those matters were taken to court by citizens of this country who felt that their rights were being infringed, and that is their right. More than that, he claimed that on every single occasion they lost their case. That is a lie. I am advised that every single person who was forcefully quarantined in the initial stages of the pandemic were quarantined under the wrong legislation. And that is why the PNM had to rush to amend the public health ordinance after the quarantine was successfully challenged in court. and the appellants had to be paid a settlement by this government. What is interesting, however, is that Dr. Rowley said that the state had paid $14.6 million in legal fees. That is $286,274 per case. That is a whopping figure, especially when you consider that the Ministry of Health and the Attorney General's office all have a battery of lawyers and a substantial legal team. So the Prime Minister has questions to answer, and I want to read some of them tonight. Who exactly are the lawyers who received this $14.6 million? What process was used to hire them? Was it the possession of a party card? And more importantly, I'm asking for a friend. Was Mr. Reginald Armour the recipient of any of these largesse? But I told you there are multiplicity of lies on Tuesday. This wasn't the end. The Prime Minister said when he was sworn in that the path for this country was a trip to the IMF. You hear lie? That is lie. When he became Prime Minister, he found an economy that had grown for 5 years and was still growing. He found $10.5 billion in foreign exchange, enough for 12 months cover. He found $5.7 billion in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund and more. But you see, they continue to repeat the lie that the economy was running on fumes, despite the fact that it was an absolute and blatant lie. But that is the lie, the PNM lie, that caused a crisis of confidence in our economy and in our country, that caused investors to pack up and leave, and which caused international credit rating agencies to continuously downgrade and make Trinidad and Tobago less attractive to investors worldwide. That is the price that taxpayers now are having to pay for Imbert and Prime Minister Keith Rowley's lies to this nation and to the world. Perhaps the one true thing that Dr. Rowley said in his hour and 27 minutes was they extracted more money from their source of revenues. They taxed citizens more. And that is something this man was boasting about on Tuesday night. They introduced a series of new taxes. They raised the cost of government services and worse, imposed VAT on 7,000 food items that previously were VAT-free. That is not something to boast about, Dr. Rowley. That is something to feel ashamed for. That is something to be ashamed about because you are victimizing the poor. But we must never forget, this is the Prime Minister who openly boasted, and I quote, "We have to allow the rich to become richer." That is PNM policy. But let me continue with the Prime Minister's lies from Tuesday. According to Rowley, and I quote, "We were owing millions in VAT and we accelerated the payment." You hear lie? That is lie. His government was owing over $4 billion in value-added tax to businesses in returns for years, and it was only last year that they started dealing with those debts. But you know, they didn't repay the VAT owed. What they did is they gave them bonds. They gave the businessmen bonds, so they deferred the actual payment of VAT way down into the future. And today they're still owing millions and millions of dollars in VAT. That obviously sabotages whom? Small, medium, and micro industries. There's another lie. Rowley said, and I quote, "They talk about jobs and jobs, but they will never admit that we preserve jobs." You hear lie? Let me tell you why that is a lie. When he became Prime Minister, statistics, not his kind, true statistics. When he became Prime Minister, there were 620,000 persons with jobs, according to the CSO. By the end of 2020, before the pandemic, the number of persons with jobs had dropped to 570,000. That means it had dropped by 50,000 persons. 50,000 persons who were employed when he assumed office were now unemployed. Over the last 2 years, from 2020 to now, the statistics show that another 50,000 persons have lost their jobs. That is over 100,000 persons who don't have work anymore. You wonder why the country is suffering now? Another lie. Raul said he called a meeting to tell local government members what the government was going to do. You hear lie? That is lie. He had Faris sit down in the press conference and lie and said he wasn't coming because Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar said not to come. The fact is that he was under quarantine and was not allowed out. In the first place, he had no intention of coming to this thing at all. But perhaps one of the biggest lies that he has told on Tuesday was that between 2020 and now, the government couldn't fix the nation's roads because they didn't have the money. They were busy saving lives. Well, it is not today that roads are atrocious, because that is a lie, damn lie, fast and vicious lie. There were public protests for roads in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, all of that before COVID. But if he was spending the COVID money, if he was spending money that was supposed to have been allocated to road repair, and he was now taking that and putting it towards COVID spending, would that not have been shown in the actual expenditures documents that they gave us when we became members of finance? Wouldn't that have been shown in the documents presented with the budget? Well, let me tell you something. I looked at those allocations, and quite frankly, the movement of money from works to health does not exist. The man lied. Worse, this government has refused to account for the billions withdrawn from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund in the name of COVID-related activities. Imbert Rowley and his government have refused to account for the hundreds of millions of dollars from multiple international agencies and grants and loans, especially for COVID relief. But not just them. Rohan Sinanan has had access to $1.2 billion in a loan signed with the Development Bank of Latin America in 2021, especially for road repair and infrastructural development. Now that money, ladies and gentlemen, $1.2 billion, cannot be used for anything else except for the purpose for which it was loaned. So it is a lie that they do not have money to spend on road repair. In fact, just to show you how much they lied and all this talk about COVID relief and where the money went, in 2017, the allocation to the Ministry of Health was $5.3 billion in the annual budget. That was before COVID. In 2020, it was $5 billion, budgeted in October 2019, which is before COVID. So $5 billion, $5.3 billion, and let's say $5 billion. You know what it was in 2021 at the height of COVID? It had dropped to $4.87 billion. And then dropped again last year, but for this financial year, to $4.8 billion. You know what that tells you? You know what that tells you? All this talk about not having money to fix roads is a lie. So when the Prime Minister makes that claim, that he couldn't repair loans because he had to use the money to save lives, I challenge the Prime Minister tonight to prove it or apologize to this country, finally, for lying. You see, statistics prove it. What the Prime Minister's utterances highlight, however, is the absolute fact that money, billions of dollars, have been spent in the name of COVID with absolutely no accounting. And tonight, I want to repeat the call by the Honorable Leader of the Opposition for a full audit into the billions spent in the name of COVID. You see, the maths is not mathsing and the country has not benefited. In a few days' time, ladies and gentlemen, the country will be facing its 2023 budget, in which the government will once again come to the population and ask to spend more than $50 billion. Billions more to be spent without the oversight of the procurement regulator, because this government refuses to implement the procurement legislation. If there is nothing to hide, ladies and gentlemen, ask yourself why. You see, this government is facilitating corruption deliberately, and the beneficiaries are the PNM friends, family, and financiers. Ladies and gentlemen, as I wrap, I just came from the constituency of Oropouche West, which once again has been subjected to flooding as the result of poor infrastructure, the neglect of the Ministry of Works and Transport, and the specific neglect by the Minister Rohan Sinanan. Floodgates, which after 7 years are still not functional. Drains and rivers which need clearing and dredging and building up of riverbanks. Roads which need fixing. Tonight the South Oropouche River has burst its banks and several parts of Pinal, thousands of residents are underwater. Thanks to this uncaring, heartless government. My constituents are fed up of being treated like second-class citizens. They deserve better. They deserve better. They are fed up of being exposed to geographic discrimination by this government. And if they are not getting the services that they need, why should they be stuck with paying for it? Dr. Rowley said that the government is providing roads and killing mosquitoes, but people don't want to pay tax. Ladies and gentlemen, that property tax is cruel, unethical, and oppressive. It is worse. It is a heartless act by a heartless, desperate government to impose property tax on persons who have been forced to bear the brunt of unnecessary flooding, and others who have had to pay private suppliers for water, and others who have had to repair the roads themselves. I call tonight on this government to desist from installing and imposing the property tax on these homeowners. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want a future for yourself and for your children, if you want a future for your children's children, then it is time now to join the UNC. Join us in this fight to protect, to restore, and to preserve this country in the direction it's supposed to go in. I believe in the spirit of our people. I believe in our patriotism, our ingenuity, our strength, our commitment, our dedication, and our potential. United, we can restore and rebuild this country. Ladies and gentlemen, as we embark upon the auspicious celebration of Ganesh Mahachaut and Ganesh Utsav, it is my hope that the Almighty God remove the obstacles in the way of the development of our fellow citizens and the growth of our country. My name is Devendra Tanku, and I am UNC and proud.
Stopping this creeping dictatorship. Welcome to the revolution.
People crying out for justice. Some of them crying out for freedom.
Want freedom.
Everybody crying out for democracy. Now it's time to take a stand.
Platform, the indomitable Senator Zerlene John.
The revolution, the people's revolution. This is the revolution. I wanna hear everybody sing. Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Everybody sing. As we move in this people's revolution, my brothers and sisters, let's all walk together as one. This revolution.
The Honorable Kamla Prasad Bisesa, members of Parliament here this evening, fellow speakers, very inspiring speakers, UNC supporters in our listening and viewing audience, which also appear to include the Honorable Prime Minister, because he seemed to know more about our press conferences and meetings then even I do, it appears. So I want tonight to say, good night, Keith. Thank you for following us so closely and giving us valuable feedback. Members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for allowing the UNC into our virtual platform, again into your home on this weekly basis, and allowing us to present the contrast between the current PNM government and the United National Congress. What use will you make of your independence? What will you transmit to your children 5 years from today? Other countries ceased to exist in that period. Some in much less time have become totally disorganized, a prey to anarchy and civil war. The words of the PNM Prime Minister on the morning of 31st August 1962. He spoke then of the potential for disorganization and anarchy 5 years later from us gaining independence. In this week of independence 2022, 60 years now have passed. Trinidad and Tobago, how you feel? 60 years under another PNM Prime Minister, Trinidad and Tobago is unrecognizable, totally disorganized, and anarchy is at our very doorsteps. And the PNM could say what they want. They are responsible for that state of affairs. They can say what they want. According to our constitutions, one of the primary responsibilities of any government remains the safety of our citizens. It is not only a political responsibility, but it is also the government's constitutional duty to protect the lives of its citizens. Our constitution tells us that we have the right to life and liberty, but there is neither life nor liberty when criminals make you live in such a state of fear that has become unbearable and untenable. 60 years later, shooting 9-year-olds and 11-year-olds playing on basketball courts have been normalized by the PNM. There's no public outcry. 60 years later, in Never Dirty, mothers are begging for the lives of their 9-year-old sons, simply out playing and preparing for an inter-community basketball competition. What else could a mother do to keep her child safe? In July 2022, from Beetham Gardens, Leonardo Williams, 17, the mother said he had his badge ready to go and join the Civilian Conservation Corps. He wanted to do 4 courses because he wanted his own business. Isaiah Roberts, 17, Beetham Gardens. The school friend said he used to stay back late in the exam room. He so wanted to pass. Fabian Richards, 21, all gone down in the prime of their life. These were gone down by the police. Many of these young men need an opportunity. They are judged and in too many instances are executed just because of where they live and how they look. 60 years later, the PNM Prime Minister and his Minister of National Security have both disavowed any responsibility for keeping citizens safe. In fact, lives have been so devalued during their tenure. People have become numb to the brutal rape of our women, daily execution-style killings, 5 murders in 18 hours, screamed one headline. This government, like many dictatorships around the world, would have you believe that the only way to fight crime is by removing your civil liberties. They endorse and supported a policy of 1 shot, 1 kill. Don't ever forget that. 1 shot, 1 kill. To go out there and kill your children as cockroaches. You understand? Don't let Rowley wheel and turn and come and talk stupidness in your head. Because of his laziness and don't care damnness, he decided the easy way out is to just go out there and crush them like cockroach. Professor Selvin Kojo said calling black young men cockroaches sets them up for social stigmatizing, physical and psychological persecution, and racial profiling. It sets the stage for brutalizing and killing them. Kafra Kamban of the Emancipation Support Committee, he said, he has made a point that when someone is killed by police from an area like Beetham or Sealot, it is assumed they were up to no good, and there is no call for an investigation. Compare this to if someone from another area is killed. So they have normalized it, cheapened the lives. The life mean nothing, nothing. So the Emancipation Support Committee, again recently reiterated, no matter how the crime situation in the country seems outside of the control of the police, no matter how street protests becomes fiery, no matter how citizens clamor for blood in retaliation to escalating gun violence, it does not allow those who are designated to uphold the law a free pass to act outside of the boundaries of the law, and particularly so in low-income communities. So 60 years have passed. how you feel. You see, I'm seeing all of these memes going around, and nobody are really celebrating, you know. The only person who chip in to Steel Band is Rowley, you know. Is he alone up in his feelings? Nobody else is celebrating. So 60 years after independence, the government wants to force feed the population with the notion that in order to fight crime, they must restrict your right to bail. We know that is simply not true. They have had that tool for 3 years. And it didn't work. It never worked. But of course, they have a Mr. Attorney General, in case you missed it. He said he is coming back. He willing and coming again to the Parliament with legislation. I don't know to say what or to do what, because it is just another piece, let me tell you from in front, another piece of rubbish from the laziest, dunciest, stupidest, most nonsensical government since independence. The government continues to peddle the same stupidity, and it is impossible now for them to attract anyone new. So we are stuck with the lightweight deadbeat brigade because no one else is prepared to debase themselves for PNM office. Nobody else. And I say tonight, for God's sake, just go. Yeah. Just go. Yeah. Rowley said Kamala told him not to turn up for his own meeting, and he didn't show up. Well then, all right, tonight I'm telling you, go. Yeah. Go and go now. Go now. What did this government expect when they callously left thousands of children without laptops? And our shadow minister of education, MP Haynes, just went through so succinctly what happened. And this is just within 12 minutes. Imagine if she had time to really explain what happened. And there they are on the same giddiness, giggling and talking stupidness, and feel everybody's stupid. Everybody's stupid. All they are doing is a pipeline to them boys' jail on Frederick Street. That's all. Left thousands of children without laptops or any means of continuing their education. The future is in artificial intelligence, is in chip making. California announced that in 2035, they will ban cars with gasoline. So you have to make a certain kind of battery. That is where we should be going. But you have the duncy heads talking stupidness, but they're giving you the basic minimum. To do what? To get minimum wage. So they could pay you just to live. Barely to breathe. So you're there singing, nobody knows the trouble I see, and but for the grace of God goeth I, because you could only live on prayers, and them inside the Parliament running in and out with recusal and enjoying a good life. So much so that when Mr. Stuart Young goes in, because you know he very prolific with the recusal, by the time he gets in, they call his name again. You know he can't even turn around. He had to moonwalking out of the cabinet. You understand? Them business fix. You understand? No, he can't sit down. It's like he got itch. You understand? So he can't turn around. He had to moonwalk because his name called again. Young, gone again. Because money good for his father and his brother, but black people is too much for them. It is too much for them. So when you could leave 5 young men to suffocate in a pipe, suffocate, begging for air, and the Prime Minister leaves his best friend and his crew at Paria, and they are left to conduct an investigation into themselves, and they are asking how we got here. We get here because of you, Prime Minister, because of your cruelty. You got here because you are cruel, and you're wicked, and you're bad, and you're disgusting, and you need to go. You need to go. It's just too much. It's just too much. So tonight it gives me no pleasure to say we told you so, and you heard MP Anita Haynes. We told you so. When you leave children without laptop, without school, without connectivity, what do you expect? You leave the gangman to be brighter than you? He's saying, come by here, my boy. Because he has things for you. The devil does find work for idle hands to do. Parents can't manage. They can't cope. And yet this government would have taken away $500. $500. Stuart Young recusing himself and moonwalking out of the cabinet. But $500 for mothers who need it. Oh God, they need it for their children. You took that away. You know, again, MP Haynes, she spoke about all that they took away because they ain't thinking. They're just bad-minded and downright stupid. Because, no, they're stupid. Because when I remembered in 2010, nobody took away anything. They evaluated. This good, this is so good, we'll improve it. That is why dollar for dollar became gate, and gate became a bigger gate. Because you're building. When Eric Williams said the future of the children is in the school bag, and again, our own leader expanded it. expanded it. She was the bridge that created, the bridge that ensured that every child had access to secondary school education. It was Kamla Persad-Bissessar. Yes, they want to beat her down. You know why they want to beat her down? They're jealous. They have nothing to offer. And for those with something to offer, they decide they're going to ruin it. Because then they want to normalize stupidity. You understand? They want they are then comparing bad with worst. So they want to bring our leader down, and some of our own UNC people, we sit down there and we doubt, oh God, I wonder. Do not wonder the PNM wicked and bad and dunce and lazy and stupid and useless. And useless. And useless. And useless. Very useless. It is sick. It's sick. They change the policy on scholarship. Why do you think they change the policy on scholarship? Because they don't want you to know who gets in the scholarships. They don't want you to know. Right? Because it makes them feel good. If it is by some magic, it's whomever. But they don't want you to know. You understand? 9,000 people failed. Well, I mean, they got under 50%. Can you imagine people congratulating themselves with 21% attending? What kind of people is this? It's a race to the bottom. Minister Education, 21% not good. That too is under 50%. That cannot be good. We have to be teaching our children excellence. Today, America scrapped the mission to the moon. Why? Because they had a defect on the engine. You hear what's happening? Their mission to the moon. Countries that had genocides just some years ago are now in Africa are now being compared to Singapore. What are we being compared to? Venice. Because of the water. We are a city underwater. You know, before it was that you're building on lagoon, but now I saw flood in Westmoreland. What I'm building on? You see, when it starts, as Robinson had said, habits grow in slow degrees, streams into rivers, into seas. So today for you and tomorrow for me. So don't laugh when your neighbor house on fire. Now is the only time I've seen floods, no minister, fire, no minister, murder, no minister. I remember a week after Kamla Persad-Bissessar was sworn in as prime minister, there was a flood in Digo Martin. That they didn't vote for her there, but she put on her boots and she led from in front. That is what leaders do. They lead with empathy and they lead from in front. Because this month, if you were looking, President Biden, there's come the leader of the free world. First he big, oh God, he big. Leader of the free world. 350 million people in America. That's under his management. He had COVID. The day after he tested negative, what did he do? The day after, he went on the way to Kentucky because there was a flood in Kentucky. People house washing away. They don't care. Up to the Express came alive and they're talking about it's to Trinidad and Tobago is north and is south and central because they don't care about the infrastructure. And I know that MP Tanku has been talking about ad nauseum, but they don't listen because they're high on their own supply and they flex when it comes to the people in South Trinidad. So tonight I want to tell you, when I only took away the school support and guidance services, those were crime-fighting tools. The 280 teachers that MP Anita Haynes spoke about, they were crime-fighting tools. All the laptops were not for the children from South and Central. The laptops were for every child who went into secondary school. Today they have a means test. They have a means test. You know what that means? It means any child who parents support the PNM, they are going to they pass the test. That is all that means. It's all about slicing and dicing, and it's all about giving to the PNM. They don't care about anybody else. You understand? When the HEC was giving out 100 keys a week, that is a crime-fighting tool. VAT off of the basic food items, thousands of items, that is a crime-fighting tool. These things don't come down and jump up and kiss you. It's not something out there somewhere. It is, you have to have structure. You have to have purpose. You have to have data. And you have to pursue this thing called crime. You cannot allow it to just flourish and survive. You can't allow it to flourish and survive. But this government has normalized pain and indifference and cruelty. So nobody cares. All of their time is consumed with running in and out of the PNM cabinet, where they facilitate each other with billion-dollar deals. That is all they do. So when they killed 3 young men up in Mova, what happened? They created something called some kind of recovery committee. I also to them, there was no need to create any recovery committee. You know, I mean, Young, as a matter of fact, was a member of the committee. He can't find time. He cannot find time to drive from Whitehall to Mova, which is 5 minutes away. But he could find time to pack his bag at taxpayers' expense to go abroad to Palance and talk stupidness. Talk stupidness. In technology, they have a term, guy go garbage in, garbage out. That is Young. He goes there and talks and says, nonsense. 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 You know. So there was no need to create this opportunity, this new committee, because what had happened? Kamla Persad Bissessar, again, always ahead of the curve. There was a cabinet-appointed committee headed by Professor Selwyn Ryan. She ain't doing no mean stares. She always take the best person for the job. The best person for the job. And there was a document, over 400 pages of a document called Youth at Risk. And it went through everything that you needed to do. All you had to be able to do is to read. You understand? It is all on that report. It is online. They said it is in every ministry. But what is it they're doing? They create an ex committee because this is a government of Mama Guy, an announcement and showboating. And again, I say stupidity. So, yes, it's stupid. I know it's something like a broken record, but that is the only word I can find. I think. So, the Prime Minister, of course, the country is not, we have gone on and on and on. And as far as they are concerned, the country is not worth saving. After 60 years, we are still stuck with the PNM. And the last time we heard the Prime Minister, again, he did not disappoint. It was the same level of race-baiting and bacchanal. Nothing to point us forward or for even the next 60 days. Because he's busy packing, for his next taxpayer-funded jaunt. He likes to brag that I am a geologist, but really he should have studied geography because he should have been a flight attendant, the way he liked to travel and travel free. You love it, right? Because there's no gas to the plants that now exist at Point Lisa. Is there no gas to them? There is no gas for those plants. So where you going and talk? Where you going and say? What you going and do? What you going and bring back? Why are you going? He's going just because he can. Just because he can. So they have long forgotten Abio Kojo, who was murdered in Latru Straits. You remember that with her 12-year-old son? 12-year-old son, just slaughtered. Trisha Badaloo fighting to help her 21-year-old daughter, who was also savagely chopped up. 3 months ago, then we have Little Hope. And this is just coming, but you just have this rush of murders and hopelessness and callousness, And there you had Little Hope, where they said, and the neighbor said, I feel like we all failed her. Because you know what? This government is so missing in action. The people who are there are the neighbors and the NGOs. Trinidad people are good, but they don't have a good government, and we deserve better. We deserve better. His neighbor helping out neighbors, and our women are under pressure with nowhere to turn. And just very briefly, just recently, I look at all of these things. On the 15th of August, Prime Minister Modi, he was rolling, he's just 71 years old. India was celebrating their 75th anniversary, and he was rolling out his vision for the next 25 years. You think he'll be there? No. But he thinks it's the responsible thing to do. And he has this 5 resolution, and he's building it. He said his focus is around women. He called it Nari Shakti, women power. And he said that there's a distortion has crept into our conduct, and we at times insult women. Can we take a pledge to get rid of this in our behavior? And he goes on in terms of what he said, what the woman pride is going to be a huge asset in fulfilling the dreams of the nation. I see this power, and therefore I am insistent on it. Can we not pledge to get rid of everything in our behavior, culture, and everyday life that humiliates and demeans women? If only our people here, our rulers, will hear how Prime Minister Modi, he elevates women because he understands. He said our Nari Shakti is being represented in all sectors, and we will move forward quicker to develop nation status if our women are all involved. So you see the difference in the leadership. They grind women. They don't protect women and children. If our leader is late at a meeting she's holding, because I mean, the leader of the opposition has a lot of responsibilities. And she said, you know, we have a deep bench of talent. So she'll say, let somebody else do the, the PTA address. Your phone, they're ringing off your phone, asking you, where is the leader of the opposition? And they forget to ask Rowley, who missing in action for a whole month. They never ask. Our leader is so hounded that she has to come and, I remember Corpus Christi, she ended up in the papers with a little tomato basket. Why? Because she had to get proof of life. That is what they do. You understand? But I say, our honorable leader, wait on the Lord and be of good courage. because in Finland, they did the same thing to the 36-year-old prime minister, Ms. Marin. And there this young woman went out dancing in a private residence. And what did they do? They say she had to take a drug test. This is the Prime Minister of Finland, you know. And because she went on a private residence and was dancing, you know, that's, I felt a kind of consolation because it is happening all over. She had to take a blood test. And I'm saying on this same social media, you're seeing all kind of bassa about the Prime Minister, you know, and you might have to ask him, I want you to write all your family name on a piece of paper for me. I wonder what kind of test they're going to ask he to take. So, tonight, in the week of our 60th year of independence, some have needlessly paid the ultimate price. I ask you to remember the sacrifices of Miss Kojo, 30 of Lachuse Trace, and a 12-year-old son, Trisha Badalu, Andrea Barrett, Ashanti Riley, and of course 7-year-old Mackenzie Hope Rishia. Don't let their sacrifices be in vain. Don't let us allow another hope to slip through the cracks 60 years after our independence. Let's keep hope alive. I thank you so much.
If you cut me, you go see blood. And if you squeeze me, you go feel the love. We are one people under the sun, one nation under the law. So who feel the black? Who feel the white? I don't know. But it's set till tomorrow night. Who feel the wrong? Who feel the right? Come and go. And all who feel the too bright, let me jump up, let me wind up, party non-stop. Ramaje dingo lekelkete, we come to play mass. Every creed and class, don't let nothing pass. Like a ready TV, all the love inside away.
First woman Prime Minister, first woman Attorney General, first woman to chair the Commonwealth of 54 nations, first woman opposition leader. Welcome KPP Plus, solid everywhere.
Like a ready TV, all the love inside away.
As I say, another good evening at another virtual forum of the United National Congress. And look, we've had a powerful lineup of speakers. Let's give them a round of applause. Senator Damian, MP Anita Haynes, MP Dave Tanku, and of course the ever-powerful Deputy Leader, JJ. You just light up the place. Tonight I will leave all that firepower to JJ because I have some other matters I want to raise. So let's also thank our two chairpersons, Kian and Nasser, out of the Grandy Corporation. And for those of you who have joined us in person here, those join us online, many things we can say tonight. Some has already been said, so I will not repeat. Our speakers already went at the throat tonight of Rowley and the PNM. So good evening. Thanks for being here. As you know, our parliamentary recess will soon come to an end. We will go back into the parliament, the seat of our democracy, fighting for each and every citizen of our country. So we begin that parliament shortly. The government continues to launch attack after attack on economic livelihoods, on our well-being, social well-being, freedoms and liberties. And look, this, I saw the man said today that something happened on the highway. And it was Mr. Roger and the UNC. So somebody called me and asked me, did the geologists do a test on the sand? And the sand came from Sapara, and we used to call Sapara the Sand City. So did the geologists do a test on the sand to determine? The UNC had no part of that. I make that very clear tonight. We had nothing to do with that. The persons involved will answer for themselves. And they have a right, as everybody else, to protest, to take action, and that's happening all over the country. So they attack us all the time, the freedoms, liberties of citizens in every which way they can, verbally and otherwise. We will never allow them to turn our country into a state that is a dictatorship state. We must never, never, ever allow it. And since 2015, I believe that has been their intention. They have hijacked our blessed country. They have taken us down a path of destruction. They keep complaining. I mean, when they speak, it means one thing is very clear. They listen and they watch every UNC event. Whether it is this virtual meeting, whether it is the press conferences, and of course, all the TT Speaks, they look at everything. Because when they speak, their entire conversation is talking about UNC activity. I'm glad. That means UNC is very alive and functioning as a great party in our country. So they know our schedule very well. I guess they're all locked on here tonight. And to Mr. Rowley, I will say this to you: you're a very foolish man. You are a very foolish man. When the whole of the North and the West is flooded out today, what is going to be your answer? You're going to say, blame Kamala for the flooding up in the Northwest. You might decide to take buses and instead put boats. And then you will say, it's Kamala sent the boats. Blame Kamala. So now when the whole country is under flood, they laughed at us. I think speakers told us, they used to laugh at us and say, South Central, Lagoon, build house in Lagoon. Well, which Lagoon is in the West? Damien, tell me you living up there. West Warren Lagoon. And so the whole country is under flood. So even when JJ mentioned the Express called them out and talked about nothing for South and Central, that is not true. There is nothing for anyone under this PNM in this country. Whether it is in North, South, Central, East, West, wherever it is, everybody is suffering. Everybody is suffering. And whilst we recognize they find ways to just to give to PNM, they're not giving to the PNM grassroots. They're giving to their friends and the financiers and their big shots. That's what's happening. So is everybody under pressure under this wicked government? Wicked. Mr. John called them stupid. Well, on top of being stupid, they are wicked because every single one is suffering. For us, we hold these meetings. We do our virtuals. We do our press conferences. We do the TT Speaks. We do the other activity because that's our job. As a responsible party, it is called accounting to the people we serve. Accounting to the people we serve. That is a concept that is alien completely to Rowley and his government. They don't understand that you have to account to the people who put you there, who pay you there to be there, and the people whom you serve. Leadership is not about shouting at people, not about blaming people for everything. It's about listening to people, finding solutions. And unlike many in the PNM, I will always listen to the people who elected us to serve. We will always be focused on fixing problems rather than focusing on fixing the blame on someone else. We in the UNC we have love for everyone. So I hope every citizen can find some peace and love in their hearts. We have no hate for anyone, only love. And we wish everyone to find some happiness in their lives. That is what we are focused on, improving the quality of life of every single one. Always remember, if no one loves you, Damien, for any one of you here, that's not true. You have some lovely babies now. And if no one loves you, we in the UNC love you very much. So we keep the consultations, we keep the work going, we listen to you. So last week we kicked off our budget, pre-budget 2022 consultations in Chaguanas. What a bumper crowd that was. Did you see it? Let's give them a round of applause. Bumper, the hall was overflowing. Kirk Megu says it's what, standing room only. So people were very keen. They wanted to come and share their thoughts and their ideas of things we can do to make our country better. Then our second consultation down in Tabellan with Representatives Mayaro, Rio Claro, Princess Town Corporations. And this event, again, was a bumper crowd with standing room only. Massive successes, halls overflowing, people wanted to join and share their views. And these will head off. I would want to thank our team, and Ms. John made a point. I'm not the one-man leader. We have a team. I want to thank Khadija, who went to presented there, Saddam Hussein, MP Tanku, and all the others, all the councillors, local reps, and people from civil society to make these events a success. So don't forget, we continue the consultations. The next one this week will be in the Sawa, Laventil, Diego Martin, and Port of Spain corporations. Again, we reach out to every part of the country. So next Thursday, we will have this consultation. And thereafter, on Saturday, the 3rd September, we will be joining the Grandy Corporation. Yes, Kenman will be with you all up in Grandy. Where is he? Yes, always present. And of course, the other persons up there. We want a bumper crowd in Grandy as well. So in addition to this, for the budget consultations, I have personally written to stakeholders, NGOs, trade unions, chambers of commerce, and so on, to ask them for their views. They can send it to us by way of the email, or if they want to come in and speak to our team to share their ideas for budget 2022-2023. So we continue consultations and keep looking at our social media pages. You will see the venues and times for these other consultations that we are having. We will continue to have our press conferences. Yes, Mr. Rowling. We will continue to do our virtual reports. We will continue to do our budget consultations and much, much, much more. We will continue to listen to people and continue to represent their needs and concerns in and outside of the Parliament. Now, while we take a look at what some of our speakers have been doing tonight, and we look at the newspapers and the social media, and we are talking about the state of our country, the chaos that we are in, I think it's a good time to remind you of some of the achievements of the UNC. We must never forget them. We must never forget them. And we must remember the Rowley government would have spent $400 billion at the end of this fiscal year next month. Over $400 billion they would have spent. Very sad. So let's take a look at some of these achievements. We have had a really great role in the development of our country for all the people. We have saved democracy. We spread development throughout TNT. We have been in government for the short period of 11 years. Remember that, you know? The PNM has been there for how long? 50 years, Kirk is telling me. In government for 50 years. The UNC government has only been in office on 2 occasions, under Mr. Pandey, and then under my watch, 11 years. So we are a relatively young party. The PNM was formed under colonialism, remember that, so they've been there forever. And we were formed out of a struggle against the oppression from the PNM and against the PNM policies of divide and rule, which they continue to do up to today. Up to today, their policy, their main policy is divide and rule, just like the colonial masters. And in our time, there is so much we have to be proud of. Many have spoken of it. It was the UNC who created the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. Remember that? That is what is keeping our country afloat today. Because they keep drawing down from the fund, but they will not tell us how much they have put in and have not accounted to the Parliament for how much they have taken out in spite of their so-called windfall from the energy sector. Before that, the PNM never wanted to save. It was just about squandering our oil revenue. So I'm very proud, under Mr. Pandey, it was a UNC government creating the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. And that fund is what is known as a rainy day fund, because when things are not so great, the revenue streams are not so great, you have the savings that you can dip into to help the country. We have so much, I say, to be proud of. It was a UNC, again, as others have told us tonight, and we will continue to repeat it, because I think one of the greatest achievements of the 2 UNC governments has been in the sector of education. As Minister of Education under the Pandey watch, for the first time in the history of our country, we made sure that every child got a place in a secondary school. Every single child. Before that, every year when the common entrance was written, thousands of children were thrown off. They fell through the cracks, those favorite words, were not given a space in a secondary school. When we built the schools up in Bish and other parts, they said we building schools for what? Dwen. Oh, you all remember? Lagahu and Dwen. There's only one Lagahu I know and one Dwen. Is the man who said we were building the schools for Dwens. That's a short man himself. And so they were happy to continue the shift system. You remember that dreaded, horrible shift system, what it was doing to our children? That whole generation of shift children became shift people, became shift workers. They could not sustain for a whole day's basis because they would go to school half day and stay home half day. To do what? So we got rid of that shift system. We got rid of it. It was the UNC that made sure that we gave every child, you all may forget this one, every child early childhood education free. Free. Under my watch, under Pandey's watch, we got every child in the secondary school. Under my watch, we continue that, and free early childhood education. What has become of that? Not anymore. It was the UNC who championed the cause for internal self-government for Tobago. You all may not know that. Some may want to forget it. It was the UNC who championed that for self-government and getting legislative autonomy for Tobago by legislating in the Parliament to put the THA in the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And thereafter, they were guaranteed a share. This is also was under the Pandey government, of which I was a part. I think Ms. John was a part of that government too, as minister. We guaranteed that they would get a share of the national budget every year. Rowley braying and preaching about self-government for Tobago has not yet done a thing. Again, more talk. Just talk and talk and talk, as they so often do, making big announcements and pronouncements, but no implementation. The PNM was opposed to all of that we did for Tobago then. When I went into government, we brought another bill for Tobago again. The PNM rejected it outright. They did not want it, and up to today, 7 years later, they still cannot give Tobago what Tobago deserves. Remember, it was a UNC government that was responsible for some of the most important democratic constitutional reforms in our country. The Freedom of Information Act is one of them. Remember that? And because of that Freedom of Information Act, we can get so much more information from government. For example, that's how we found out they have over 200 recusals of these cabinet ministers, revolving door in the cabinet, one out, one in. Recuse, go out, come back, next one out, revolving door policy for recusals. Under that Freedom of Information Act as well, we've seen recently state companies are denying that they're state companies and therefore they're not entitled to give out information when you ask. I think TSTT is one of the recent ones. They claim they are not a state company, but yet they're getting money from the state, your taxpayers' dollars. It was a UNC government who passed the Judicial Review Act, a most important piece of legislation. Very important piece of legislation. On top of that, it was a UNC government that passed the Equal Opportunities Act. Now you may think that you are not using these pieces of law legislation, but these are very vital to ensure that a strong democracy is maintained. And so the UNC takes parentage of these very important pieces of legislation. We prove to the country that it is possible to reduce serious crimes. We proved that under Mr. Pandey's watch and under my watch. We are the only government ever to bring serious crimes down. We took it down for the lowest ever in 3 decades. And I give you the assurance, when you put us back, we will do it again. We will make it happen again. We undertook massive infrastructural development throughout the country. Remember, they used to call us the box train government. But thank God we did that. We didn't have the flooding that we have now. Infrastructure throughout the country, roads, bridges, highways, clearing water courses, improving drainage. We took credit for that and we did it. You know, the Chinese have an ancient proverb. It says, and I quote, if you want to get rich, build a road first. If you want to get rich, build a road first. There's a lot of wisdom in that expression, and that is what the UNC government did all over the country. I am sure many of you can remember all these works. The highway coming down south, of course. Supposed to reach Point 14, reach Point 14 7 years later under the BNM. Shame. Shame. Now they're saying Rowley boasting about agriculture when I showed you last week where he said we don't have land for agriculture. Well, people say he's right, you know. Because now all the potholes in the road, you could just plant a plant in the pothole and you don't have to get no land, you don't have to get nothing, you have to do nothing. In fact, I saw it up on social media, planting plants in the potholes.
Fish farming too.
Fish farming too, yeah, you just go to the potholes again. So, the UNC expanded social support and social safety. We did it for students. We did it for single mothers. We did it for the elderly. We did it for the low income. We did it for the vulnerable young men in the crime-ridden communities. We did it for farmers. We lifted all up without fail, without discrimination. We showed the country that all of this could be done without raising a single tax. Not one tax was raised on our watch, not a single tax. In fact, we did the opposite. We removed the VAT, the tax, value-added tax, from over 7,000 food items. We did. And every budget, I remember in PNM days before we went into government, as again, before budget, people running to buy gas, running to buy cigarette, alcohol, all the things that they would always put taxes on. Oh God, when fellas get so crazy, they put in tax on your online purchases. And now Rowley's committing to this revenue authority. I repeat, the UNC is totally against the revenue authority in its present form. Totally against it. We were also responsible for establishing the National Operations Center, which helped us to deal with crime, which helped us to deal with natural disasters, helped with flooding, because we could get everything in one place and be able to administer what was necessary. We launched the E99, you all remember that? I remember when those vehicles came, they were painted blue and yellow. And they complained about the yellow on the vehicle. When everywhere in the world that you see these police vehicles is what? Yellow and blue, everywhere. These people are so full of hate, that just a color gets them upset. You know, you talk about a red flag to a bull, but they are like a yellow flag. They behave like some of those people. And they put everything in red. From way back when to now, everything in red. We showed the country, as I said, without new taxes. We introduced a rapid response unit. What has happened to all these things? Rapid response unit, E99. Is it that they are not refurbishing the vehicles, they're not fixing it, they're not giving the resources to the TTPS, and then want to blame the TTPS for everything? When you have a lazy, sleeping Minister of National Security, Hines, who stood on Tuesday and lied on that platform on Tuesday night, lied as they all did. They all lied on what they were saying. We constructed 93 primary and secondary schools throughout the country. We had 91 more schools under construction. We constructed 57 early childhood centers, and there was another 52 under construction. When they came in, vine growing on it everywhere, bush and vine, just abandoned these schools are. We established an Aviation Institute of Trinidad and Tobago at the Camden Airfield in Couva. We established the first ever drilling academy in the history of our country, because we had over 100 years in the oil sector. We established the Children's Life Fund to help children in need. We transformed fresh water, potable water distribution. When we got in 2010, water in your taps was just about 17%. By the time we left office, we had raised that to 74%. And our target was by 2018, we would have 90%. What has happened? All the taps have dried up again. Back to where? And the same thing is happening with Tea and Tech. Have you noticed how often electricity is cutting off? Within the last couple of days, I experienced blackouts in 2 days, one day, another day. I don't know what they're doing, Gil. They're just totally hopeless, incompetent, and wicked. We amended the Senior Citizens Grant Act to change the name of that act, call it Senior Citizens Pension Act, to make changes from Senior Citizens Pension within that act. We would increase the ceiling for monthly pensions to $3,000. We set out the various income ranges as the criteria to access this pension. You know, what have they done? People have no jobs, so where are they getting pension from? The NIB has no money to even pay from their pension funds to people who have worked in their lives and made these contributions to the NIB. We settled 143 wage negotiations. That is performance, you're right. And there's so much more, it would take me all night to continue. But just one I want to raise with you, and that was both Anita and JJ talked about the first Prime Minister and his very famous statement that the future of the nation is in the book bags of the children. And I changed those words to be as follows. The future of the nation is in the laptops in the book bags of the children. And so there's so much that we can be proud of, that we can do more to help everybody in this country. And before I go on to complain and gripe, let me share some policies I think that this government, we tell them but they don't listen, as you all said before, don't listen. They harden. They just harden. They say stick break in the ears, I think is the expression, Kelvin. We have plans and suggestions to improve our country. Just a few I could see today as we are heading towards the budget presentation. Reduce taxes to help businesses. Yes. Reduce taxes to help businesses. Famous statement by Winston Churchill, you cannot tax a nation out of poverty. Cannot tax them out of poverty. The IMF's recent issue of the World Economic Outlook says that with increasing prices, continue to squeeze living standards worldwide, taming inflation should be the first priority for policymakers. And whilst the IMF is proposing higher taxes, I'm saying there's not a formula that works for everyone. We are a small, open, energy-based economy. We cannot take higher taxes on anything in this country. The suffering is already so great, the job losses are so great, that we should be reducing taxes to help small businesses. And secondly, invest in increasing the ease of doing business. You see, if businesses are not working well, the country can't work well. If businesses are shutting down, as they have been shutting down, where will you get your jobs? You'll be fired, you'll be put on the breadline, your family will be suffering. So invest in the ease of doing business. The length of time it takes to even just register business is intolerable. In every aspect. Look what's happening at the port now. We are told that the scanner is not working on the port. So what are they doing? Are they just letting these containers go free? Is that why we are getting so many guns and ammunition and drugs coming into the country? If you don't have the scanners working, you can't even get scanners working on your port. Where's the ease of doing business? Businesses depend on the port. You should have your port up and running. You told us some time ago you're going to sell the port or privatize the port. But again, more talk, no action. Nothing is happening. And so what they should do, reduce government spending will be problematic. They should not reduce government spending. They should use that spending to invest, as I say, in people, in human resources, and in tangible investments to increase the ease of doing business. Two ideas, I will say, and therefore a third. There must be more focus on the vulnerable. We have neglected the vulnerable for too long. They have continued to miss the mark to help the most vulnerable. The approaches to restart the school term, as Adina shared with you, Anita, shows their lack of empathy for the marginalized in our country. I repeat the call I made when classes were resumed earlier this year, that there are many families who cannot afford the uniform. They cannot afford the books, much less to afford the book bag in which they'll put the books. They just can't. And I'd call that we should give the basic school uniform textbooks to the most vulnerable. We should give a grant for these things to the marginalized children. Again, I call for government to issue a uniform grant and expand access to textbooks for families in need. And next time we speak, maybe Anita or I, one of us, will tell you the amount of textbooks under my watch that we made available to the children in this country. I also repeat my call for migrant children to be allowed to attend public schools when the term starts in September. And the ability of our children to succeed is connected to their nutrition, to their diet. Under my tenure as Prime Minister, we expanded the school feeding program. We expanded it. I think Angie Benjamin was on that were you on the committee? Yes. We expanded that program. And so it is necessary for government not only to expand the school feeding program, but also to bring back the market basket. You're on the market basket. Where has it gone? You're talking about agriculture and farming. Where has it gone? There's also a homework gap where we have nots, do not. We don't have the energy to pay attention when our children study at home because there's not enough food in the house to nourish the children. These programs must be made available to all children, including the migrant children, because they are all God's children, all God's children. I urge government to do far more for the children of our nation. And so we are here now, a nation in crisis at 60. As you all know, we will celebrate that 60th milestone this Independence Day. Do not let the PNM fool you into thinking they fought for any independence. If you know your history, the British fired us. They didn't want the colonies anymore. They said, go, please go, please go. So what fight did you fight? The British Empire was shedding the empire. The British were not fighting to keep us as colonies. And so you see, all of us around the same time, all the Caribbean here, all the Commonwealth, most of the Commonwealth nations, go, please go, all you go. That's how we got independence. It wasn't a fight. There was a fight, however, when they went up to Marlborough House to put in the terms of the Constitution. There was a fight there between the government and the opposition to ensure that there were some checks and balances in the Constitution that would ensure that all people, all would have an equal place and an equal space in our country. That was the fight, but not to get independence. After the World War, the British were determined to get rid of us because we were like pulling them down, you know. Sugar had gone. We were lucky we had oil, but most of the colonies had very little resources. And so the PNM inherited from the British a country blessed by God with abundant natural resources, a multicultural population living in harmony and safety. That is what the PNM inherited at the time of independence. At that time in 1962, we were about at the same GDP per capita. You may not remember, some of you are too young, but you could go check it. We were at the same GDP per capita levels as Singapore and Hong Kong. In fact, ours was slightly higher. After 60 years of independence, we should still be on par with these countries, but as you know, Singapore is way out in the world. Being blessed with so many gifts, natural resources, human resources. Instead, after 50 years of PNM rule, they have wreaked havoc, they've destroyed our country, and the worst of it happened in the last 7 years under Keith Rowley. And after $400 billion spent by Rowley and his government. Today, after 60 years, where do we stand compared to Singapore and Hong Kong, where, as I said, we were on par with them, if not slightly higher at that independence time. Singapore's GDP per capita today is 72,000 US dollars. Hong Kong's GDP per capita is over 49,000 US dollars. Do you know what ours is? You'll be shocked. Trinidad and Tobago, remember we were richer in these countries because we had oil. So where are we when you compare them? Today we are at 15,000 US dollars GDP per capita. And Rowley keeps saying he shut down the Petrotrin refinery because we had to import oil. Can I tell you something? Some of you may know. Singapore has one of the largest productive refineries, and they do not have a drop of oil in Singapore. They import every single drop of oil to run their refinery. And that's how they're doing so well. They're smart. They're not stupid as they say, not stupid like these people. So here we are. They destroyed the foundations of our country. They destroyed the railroad. You remember the railroad? Anybody here young like me could remember it? Well, I don't remember it, but I know where the railway lines are. So we'll have to look for somebody like Kenwin to help us, or Tahaka to help us. They destroyed Caroni. They destroyed agriculture. They destroyed Petrotrin. They destroyed Point Lisas. They destroyed iron and steel production. They destroyed safety and security. They destroyed national harmony. They destroyed democracy and are well on their way to establishing a dictator state. So the trail of destruction goes on from way back. And we've seen our country diminish now. We are on our knees. And they keep begging every day to borrow some money from somewhere and more money to borrow, beg. Tax, and borrow. The obstacle to our development for the past 60 years has always been the PNM. And I want to make the point again, the Rowley PNM is the worst of all. I want to say, as we approach this anniversary of independence, we in the UNC are committed to rescuing TNT from further destruction, to ensure that we become the paradise that we were and that we are meant to be. God has given us all the resources we need to be a great nation. We have the natural resources. We have the human resources. All we need is a government that has the policy, the vision, and the mission to rescue TNT and to build and grow and develop our country. That's what we need. And therefore, when you sing for independence this year, sing, Rowley must go. Rowley must go. Rowley must go. So in spite of all the evidence that everyone in our country is suffering, what are they coming to do now? On Friday, 2nd September, a Papi show again, Spotlight. Spotlight. And when you see who are the speakers, well, you know the only spotlight is going to be the country is great. We have recovered. Everything is good and grand and great. When everyone knows that's not true. Imbert and Rowley, they're going to the Hyatt. Spotlight. Imbert and Rowley are going to sip champagne, eat caviar at the Hyatt, while telling you that the same thing Stuart Young told CNN. You remember what he told them? The people in Trinidad and Tobago has never had it so good. That's what he said. He told CNN, the people of TNT never had it so good. Everything is wonderful. Stuart Young, where are you living? Where do you live? The colonial rulers believed that the society, they were naturally at the top, the colonial rulers, and that's where these guys want to be again. Like the old colonial masters, 60 years, the colonial rulers are gone, but we now have the PNM, and just like the colonial rulers of old, Imbert and Rowley will sip fine wine at the Hyatt, eat fancy food and so on, paid for by your taxpayer dollars to come and lie to the country. They will say that everything is good. And if anybody complains, well, you know, Rowley's answer is always, well, it could be worse. That's his answer. When people complain about things, it could be worse. Dr. Rowley, it could be better. It could be much better under a UNC government. It could be much, much better. No better than these colonial masters that we have. Let the people starve whilst they sit and eat at the quiet. And this spotlight on the economy we use as a mask to hide the truth about what is really happening in TNT. So if I may share with you in the first public meeting Rory had, because that was like a forerunner for the spotlight, what they'll be coming to tell us. In that meeting they did, when was it? Tuesday? It was Tuesday night. The Prime Minister sought to tout his government's record on the economy. MP Tanku dealt with some of those issues here tonight. The main takeaway from that rant on Tuesday was that he wanted the nation to keep quiet on the areas of delivery that concern their daily lives. They should not be concerned with potholes. They should not be concerned with poor education access. They must not be concerned with access to CDAP medication, cuts to schools and social services. Because why? Crying all the money was spent on what? COVID. Tanku did it right tonight. You hear a lie? That is big, big, big lie. This government has been notorious liars, but that has been the greatest lie they told. If they decided to bring up a fantasy so great, it will be unbelievable, but they will still spew it. And there's some who still get taken in by their lies, their distortions, and their contortions. The government received no less than US dollars, $644 million US dollars. You know what money is that? 4.5 billion TT dollars. They received that from whom? From the IMF. What did they get that money for during the pandemic? They took loans throughout the period amounting to more billions. They claim to have spent $5 billion on COVID-related support. And yet, we have had the highest death rate from COVID in the world, amongst the highest. Over 4,000 persons have died from COVID. But they spent over $5 billion, they tell us, to fool us on COVID. And so they don't want anybody to complain about their gross mismanagement, their corruption, their theft. They have used the majority of this money to enrich their friends, their family and their financiers and family members, paying them friends. The Prime Minister seemed to be a shadow of his usual belligerent self on Tuesday, as he tried to sell the failure of the shutdown of Petrotrin. And we have shared this statement, would have spoken on it as well. The lies on Petrotrin was making a profit, but he was so short-sighted, no vision, or maybe he had something to hide, so he shut down Petrotrin, I don't know. And so he talks about selling Petrotrin, the shutdown, selling property tax, selling the Revenue Authority to the faithful. To debunk a few of the talking points, which are no doubt being dusted off in advance of the spotlight, on Tuesday the Prime Minister did this. His record in renegotiating with the energy majors. He did this without taking credit for the exodus from Point Lisas. And JJ is right. What is he going to Switzerland to talk to whom about what? What is he going there when we have no gas? What are you going to Switzerland for? This time you'll have to report, because we hold you to account. So Point Lisas, exodus from out of that. But he boasted he renegotiated with energy majors. And when he did that, it caused the shutdown of NGC that was so profitable. One of the most profitable state agencies, NGC, when he went up there and renegotiated, he said he was the best salesman for that. Renegotiated the price, the gas prices. Made a loss which we are still suffering from today. He boasted that even though he shut down Petrotrin, he did not lose the election. He said the PNM looks at the big picture, but the UNC only studies individual lives. They look at the big picture, suffer everybody, suffer everyone. But he acknowledged that the UNC considers individual lives. Yes, I'm proud of that. I am proud of it. I'm proud of that. I hope the members of the trade union movement heard when Rowley boasted of causing hardship and pain for the thousands of persons who lost their jobs. He boasted about the shutdown of Petrotrin, taking away these jobs. And it wasn't just the Petrotrin jobs, it was all the, lifeline or the borderline communities in Pointe-à-Pierre. He said they should be happy. They should be happy. He touted the Revenue Authority as a necessary institution. I want to remind you of the dangers involved where the Director General of this TTRA will be politically appointed by the cabinet of the PNM. And what is the TTRA? Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority, coming for money from your pockets. And the people who will be administering will be a political appointee of a PNM cabinet. Do you see the danger in that? Again, this dictatorship that they're seeking to set up, this means in which hands the government has engaged in will not stop, will get worse when they bring this TTRA into being. We already saw the matter based on apparent bias. The state's case against persons in the airport inquiry was thrown out. We are marching headlong into the realm of injustice with this government's capture of more key institutions. I want to remind everyone that these institutions that the PNM have compromised are key for keeping law and order and social justice and democracy. After mistreating the health sector workers, this man stood up on Tuesday night, shameless. For 7 years, he come and say, I'm going to give some money to the health sector workers. Shameless, 7 years, where were you? What did you do? We'll wait and see what that means. Unfortunately, it will not address the working conditions they operate under. It will not address the lack of job opportunities for young doctors and other issues plaguing the health sector under this government. Roads will not remain substandard forever. Another boast from him. After 7 years of road breakdown everywhere in the country, everywhere, he tells us, they will not remain substandard. He said it was a question of priorities. It was not potholes in the middle of a pandemic. This is what he's boasting about, That's what he boasted about. We can say the roads around his golf course and Chagaramas, I'm sure. You from the West will tell me, I'm sure those roads are in tip-top condition around his golf course. He claimed they will reform local government. How many times, Khadija, have we heard that? Year upon year upon year, 7 years, and he's still talking about reforming local government. The same song they sang. Every time the local election coming up, local government reform. Local government reform. He tried to label the UNC as anti-CARICOM. He seems to have forgotten their attempts to support Granger's attempt to steal the election in Ghana. You remember that? Yes. He come now traipsing up and down with the president of Ghana like he's the best friend. When they and their operatives went into Ghana to try to steal that election from the present government. That has to be the most anti-CARICOM act that ever was. He feels good with how the PNM is managing the economy. The question is how citizens are feeling, especially the experiences of mass unemployment, runaway food prices. 2/3 of all households, based on the National Financial Literacy Survey of the Central Bank, reported they were negatively affected by the lockdown measures and the business closures during the past 2.5 years. This is from the Central Bank. 2/3. 2/3 mean 2 in every 3 persons badly affected. 29% reported they do not have money to make it to the end of the month. Not only this means they cannot save anything for a rainy day, but of course they cannot even get food on their tables. It means they will not be in a position to help with their children's education, health care, and many cases saving for a family home. This is the Central Bank saying this, not me. And what is the Prime Minister's response? The driver driving good. That's his response. That's his response when his own central bank is telling us what's going on. There's a resounding chorus across the country showing Rowley cannot drive. That driver cannot drive. He couldn't even drive a golf cart when he bunks down somebody, bunks a lady. Yes? I want to remind members of the business community, the trade union movement, and the general public, the central bank in their survey published last quarter shows the fallout for families under this government. 39% have faced reduced earnings. 24% suffered temporary job loss. 20% faced permanent job loss. These are very alarming statistics, and they will come there on the spotlight or whenever, on the second, to boast how well they're doing. How can a government sit by where we have reports of 20% losing jobs? It means either CSO statistics are false or the central bank survey is false when it is reporting unemployment to date. And so despite everything collapsing around us, the whole country in a state of collapse, in a state of suffering, they will come to boast, but as I say, we will hold them to account. Yes. I will not attend the spotlight, because this man, if I say I'm not coming, like he does not attend if I don't go somewhere. So I will not give him that pleasure. Let's see if he turns up for his own spotlight on Friday, as he failed to show up. And he's still buffing us for that, you know, because the UNC councillors did not attend the sham papi show on local government. The man calling me foolish woman. Well, listen, Mr. Rowley, you are a foolish man, and you have to go. You have to go. You have to go. So friends and family, we are all UNC and proud. We stay together, we work together, we play together, we pray together. And we stay banded and united as one force with only one mission: to legally remove the Rowley government out of office. So good night, God bless, and UNC and proud. UNC and proud. UNC and proud.
Who feel the white? I don't know. But it's set till tomorrow night. Who feel the wrong? Who feel the right? Come and go.
Good evening, everyone. The United National Congress pre-budget consultation is rolling into Barataria this Thursday, 1st September at 6 p.m., hosted by the San Juan Laventil Regional Corporation, Port of Spain City Corporation, and Diego Martin Regional Corporation. Join us live from the Barataria Community Center as we hear from various stakeholders and members of the public. Let's talk budget. See you there. Good evening, everyone. The United National Congress pre-budget consultation is rolling into Barataria this Thursday, 1st September at 6 p.m., hosted by the San Juan Laventil Regional Corporation, Port of Spain City Corporation, and Diego Martin Regional Corporation. Join us live from the Barataria Community Center as we hear from various stakeholders and members of the public. Let's talk budget. See you there.